The hype for this movie is unreal, and we are so back, baby. What is going on, everyone? I'm ThatGuyMatt, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just got back from seeing 28 Years Later, and man, do I have a lot to say. I was unbelievably excited for this movie. I just got done reviewing 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later in anticipation for this review, and I was thoroughly surprised. This movie turned out to be much better than I thought it was going to be. It's not to say this movie's not perfect. It does have its problems, which I'll get into later on, but for right now, let's go ahead and discuss the plot. So 28 Years Later obviously takes place 28 years after the initial infection in 28 Days Later, and they're basically just living out their day-to-day lives, farmaging, pillaging, and trying to keep up with resources, collecting animals and food, and they're basically just trying to fend off against the infected, who actually evolve in this movie, which ended up being a big concern for me because when I was watching the trailer for this movie, I'm thinking, like, how are the infected actually going to make it past this point? Because if you recall from 28 Weeks Later, they died, I think, after starvation and dehydration after just 5 weeks. So, like, what's the answer for them surviving this long? It is simply just grown and evolved throughout the years, which is a good enough answer for me. The main plot follows this kid named Spike who learns that his mother actually is dying from some form of cancer, and he has whereabouts that there actually is a doctor somewhere outside of the village, and so he, against all odds, seeks out this doctor in a desperate attempt to save his mother from this illness that she has. However, along the way, he obviously has to survive against the wilderness, dehydration, hunger, and of course the infected. And let me tell you guys, I had a blast watching this movie. It was so much fun. 28 Years Later does have its action sequences, however, this movie does take a backseat in the fact that it prioritizes more of an emotional story rather than an action-based one, which I'm actually okay with. I thought the first movie had its emotional sections, and I think that 28 Weeks Later started to get away from that and started to make it more action-y and started to make it more Hollywoodized as opposed to the semi-grounded approach that the first movie had and this one had. So I'm really glad that we're kind of getting more back to basics. The look of this movie is fantastic. The set pieces, the shrubs, the greenery, the amount of vegetation everywhere, it all looks really convincing. The amount of growth of trees and all the leaves everywhere really leaves you with this idea that this world is just completely desolate. It just looks great. The characters also are pretty memorable. I think Spike, obviously the child actor, did the best job here. He definitely had the most emotional baggage to bring with him, and I think overall he actually did pretty good considering that, you know, he's a child actor, and sometimes child actors, as much as I hate to say this, they can be hit or miss. And I think he did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see what he brings to the table for the next movie. The infected are still very, very good, and of course, above all things, they're still very scary. Of course, they're still the way they were in the first two movies, however, they have evolved and grown, and now we have different iterations of infection here. We actually have what are called alphas, who basically are smart zombies. They're much smarter, they can take more punishment, and they just basically take their time with their victims as opposed to just going out and brawling them to death. Oftentimes when you actually are making a zombie film, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that, like, oh, we have to have like 15 different types of zombies. However, 28 Years Later keeps it very simple by just having a couple of different zombies. You have just the standard infected, and then you have the alphas. Maybe they might introduce more as the series goes on, but I'm actually kind of glad they still kept it somewhat simple. I like that idea. Not to get into spoilers, of course, but I thought the story this time around was like a lot more emotional. Again, the idea that this son is willing to make all these sacrifices and potentially even get hurt or even killed to save his mom from this illness she has, I thought was a very noble thing, and it actually did lead to a couple of moments where I almost did tear up in the movie theater. It was very, very emotional. Yeah, I actually am tempted to say this might be one of the best narratives in terms of a 28 Days Later movie in general, which is really saying something. And now it is unfortunately time to delve into some of the things that did not quite work for me. You have to bear in mind that I've only seen this movie one time, so I might get certain details wrong, but I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers as best as I can, but if I do end up putting spoilers up here, I'll probably put like a little tag here somewhere, but let's go ahead and get into them. For starters, I think the opening of this movie doesn't quite land for me the way that the first two movies did. I think that 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later definitely did a better job at implementing the rage virus being introduced into the world. Even though a lot of people say that 28 Weeks Later is the inferior film to the first movie, I think we all can agree that it has one of the best openings to any horror film. The movie opens with a bang. The infected are here almost instantly, and there's not really any time to like get to know some of the characters or really like delve into what they're doing and how they're thinking. No, it's a group full of people and then they're just instantly attacked by the infected, which is still effective because they're still, you know, infected and they're fun to see. However, I think that it was just a bit jarring and it didn't quite live up to the expectations of those first two movies, in my opinion, as far as openings are concerned. The second big thing is that there actually is some instances where I think the music can be tweaked a little bit. There's a moment in the movie where Spike wakes up from sleeping, and I think that it actually played some type of like upbeat rock music. And this might sound nitpicky, but I actually would have preferred if that scene didn't play music at all, because I think it actually would have gone better with the tonal shift of how like everyone kind of wakes up and like this is just the world they live in now, like where like it's just desolate and there's like very little to be happy about. And I think that it kind of clashes with the tone of the scene specifically. It's not bad per se, but it's really hard to take seriously in that particular instance. But maybe if you guys have seen the movie, you might be able to tell what I'm talking about, but I just didn't think it was used all that well. That said, there are other tracks in this movie that do a way better job at actually matching the tone of the movie, so I'll give it that. And of course, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is that this is not necessarily a negative, but this is definitely something that I think will probably be answered in the next movie or so. So I'm going to go ahead and list a spoiler tag right here. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then just go ahead and skip to the ending. I'll put like a timestamp here below. But we have an infected mother zombie, right? And she gives birth to a newborn baby, and you're thinking like, oh shit, this actually is gonna be an infected, enraged baby. This baby is not infected at all. It doesn't show any signs, its eyes are not red, it doesn't show any signs of being infected. And my initial thought was, well, maybe it's like 28 weeks later where the baby actually is asymptomatic and it just doesn't show any signs of being infected. But I don't see that being the case because the characters numerous times throughout the movie say that the baby is not infected. So maybe there's something that I'm missing here, but I don't know. Maybe this is something that just will be answered in 28 years later, Bone Temple, the sequel that's coming up pretty soon. I have no idea, but I just thought that this was kind of a weird plot point. But besides that, I have almost no other negatives. I love 28 years later. This was just about everything that I wanted in a sequel. It's not super over the top and it's not trying to outdo 28 weeks later. It brings it back down to earth and is more grounded with just, you know, a few infected, the virus evolving and just, you know, changing throughout the years. We have a group of likable characters again, and it's just a good time. Like I said, this is virtually everything I wanted from a 28 years sequel. And I'm thoroughly impressed. I actually was very excited for this movie, and I think that in my case, I think the hype actually did live up to this. I was fully expecting to go into this thinking it would probably just be like an okay movie at best, but I actually want to go see it again really badly. And I can't wait for this movie to come out on Blu-ray and DVD because I really want to watch it again. So yeah, guys, that was my review of 28 Years Later. Holy shit, I am very happy. If you guys have seen it, what do you think about the movie down below? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you think it's better than the first two, or are you somewhere in the middle? I'd like to know any and all thoughts you have about the movie. But until next time, guys, this has been That Guy Matt, reviewing 28 Years Later. And until the next video, I will see you guys all next time. I hope you all take care.